Hi there, a video on coding. When deciding what code to give a non-compliance, the most likely go-to method is to refer to a list of hundreds of examples within a publication giving such advice. I'm not knocking the use of such guidance that they provide, however, it's interesting to note they all advise it's down to the electrician to make the final decision. So, instead of wading through pages and pages looking for an example that fits our particular observation, this video gives a short introduction on how to both make a confident call on a particular code and build up an in-depth knowledge of the regulations. To start with, we will look at the codes themselves and then look at the example of earthing and bonding to demonstrate an informed and professional approach. 4 codes are listed, 3 of which results in an unsatisfactory report. C1 is danger present and immediate action to be taken. C2 is potentially dangerous and urgent action to be taken. You could argue that there's not much difference between immediate and urgent. In fact, the Oxford Dictionary gives the same meaning to both terms. However, for our purposes, it can be understood that action should be taken as soon as possible, and that means what it says. Never give a time limit to the customer, for example, 1 month to complete remedial work. C3 states on the EICR in Appendix 6 that improvement is recommended. Guidance Notes 3 says required. Appendix 6 is the guidance commonly adhered to. FI, further investigation. Examples are unidentified circuits, unsatisfactory ZE results and supply voltages outside supply parameters. A video addressing the further investigation code is in the pipeline. Opinion on those dangers. In Part 1, Chapter 13, Regulation 131.1, the first thing that is addressed is danger to persons and livestock. Top of the list is, as expected, electric shock. The next regulation, 131.2, which doesn't go into the technical detail of how to achieve it, explains that there are 2 ways to protect against getting an electric shock. Basic protection, which is protection against direct contact, and fault protection, which is protection against indirect contact. For fault protection, broadly speaking, it then describes that we need to limit the A. length of time a current passing through a body, achieved by earthing, B. magnitude of a current passing through the body, achieved by bonding. It also stresses that bonding is an important component of protection. So at this point, we have clearly identified the danger of electric shock and how to prevent it. If prevention measures aren't employed, it should be obvious that a code C1 or C2 would be given. It would be now a good idea to know what the difference is between earthing and bonding. I say this because, being a trainer of the regulations and taking calls on the helpline for 15 or more years, it was a continuing problem of not clearly defining the difference between the 2. I believe this is the root of so many questions on this topic. Both elements are connected by a green and yellow protective conductor to the main earthing terminal. However, they serve different purposes. Part 2 tells us what the difference is. Exposed conductive part, a conductive part of the electrical installation that could become live due to a fault. Extraneous conductive part, a conductive part liable to introduce a potential, generally an earth potential, which is not part of the electrical installation. A fault is defined as specifically a current flowing through an unintended path. Having established what earthing and bonding are, we can now look at Chapter 41, Safety from Electric Shock, at the technical requirements. Regulation 411.3.1.1 is what's required for earthing, and Regulation 411.3.1.2 addresses bonding. When it comes to protective conductors, Chapter 54 deals with the selection and erection of equipment, such as choosing and installing protective conductors. A common complaint is that the regulations are put together in a manner that's complicated, but once you grasp the structure, it does become much simpler. Hopefully, you will see that this is a structured approach that will enable you to gradually build up your detailed knowledge of the regulations and give a confident assessment of the codes to be applied. By following this method on all parts of Regulation 131.2 of the fundamental principles, you will find your reliance on wading through countless examples of coding issues less and less. It would be great if you can contribute feedback on this video, if you found it helpful, or if you have any thoughts on this topic. Thank you.